everybody, this is CeruleanOak, and today we're going to be looking at the Meet the Soldier video that Val provided for us, and we're going to be diving into the acting sequences and the character animation with the soldier, and we're going to be taking a look at exactly what's going on here to see what we can learn and what tips and tricks we can glean from what they've given us. So we're going to take a look at 3 shots today. Shot A, which is if the Sun Tzu sequence, I guess you could call it the Art of War sequence, where he's talking to the heads on a fence. And then the second sequence, which is Sun Tzu's / Noah's Ark. I'm not sure who wrote this sequence. It's obviously ridiculous and also brilliant. But and then this silly shot, which for some reason the soldier's not appearing in now. Is he going to come back? Well, that's just beautiful. Okay, well, for some reason the soldier's not in this shot, so we're going to go ahead and reload the program. Reload. Anyways, I'll take this brief moment to talk about the graph editor and also what exactly went into the sequence from what I've observed. I don't know if you've gotten into this file yet or not, but you'll notice when you get into these curves here, if I was to look at the soldier, let's just say his head here, and you'll notice there's no keyframes here. You just get this mess of lines, which makes things very difficult if you want to make changes but maintain to some degree the animation that's in there. And a lot of times, what people will do is they'll really just go into the motion editor and just make minor changes to it, just because there's really no way to take this data aside from going frame by frame using the arrow key and the M key and just going frame, and that sucks. But kind of what you need to do to really maintain the shape. And the reason for that is that they probably didn't do any of the animation for these shots. I hate to say it, in Source Filmmaker. That's not to say that you can't do this kind of thing in Source Filmmaker, which you definitely can. But we're not going to be looking at keyframes today. We're just going to be focusing on, so not on the graph editor. We're just going to be looking at the shots themselves and analyzing what's going on in the shot, both on camera and around the camera in the work area. So let's go ahead and do that first. So, and I'll turn the sound on here so we can just watch this scene and take it in. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is, of course, besides the facial animation, is the movement of the head, and it's very active. But one thing that's important to notice is that pretty much the head doesn't do anything besides rotate left and right without the upper body. Every time you see the head move, like here, you see the shoulder come up. And this is really important. You see this a lot with people when they're trying to animate someone talking. They'll just bobble the head around, which is so unnatural. Usually, especially when you're standing up on your feet, you inevitably move your upper body just as much as you might move your head, aside from small rotations in the neck to follow eye movement, and then things like this, where you get up and down rotation on the neck. But anyways, before we talk too much about the actual animation, let's go ahead and get back into the scene here. And I know he's here somewhere. There he is, out in the cornfield. Now, if you look at the same scene again, you'll notice something very obvious. His legs ain't doing nothing. In fact, if we look here, and let's get into here. If we get into the pelvis, you'll notice that the majority, let's do this here. The majority of the motion is actually in the up and down motion of the pelvis. Here. you'll see he goes, to make this transition, he gets down like he's bending his knees and then coming back up, but he never actually bends his knees. And the reason for that is you don't need to. Why animate something that you don't have to? You see this again here, where he's getting up close, and I'm not sure why that animation is there. Oh, you know what? It was probably just to compensate. They wanted to get this chest puff, but didn't want to, completely tweak the animation that was going on in the upper body. But and then you see this again where it goes way down. Sun Tzu said that. I'd say he knows a little more about fighting than you do, pal. Oh wait, that's not right here. I'm forgetting the lines, but you can see what I'm talking about here. Whenever the soldier might bend his knees, he go ahead and he just gets down with the pelvis. So if I was to animate this, I could put an IK rig on here and, keep his feet planted. Also, you'll notice that he is totally off the ground here. He is nowhere near the ground. And the reason for that, I imagine, I have no idea. I guess they just didn't need to. It may be they wanted to have a certain angle on the camera, but they wanted this giblets. I'm not exactly sure why. So let's go back and look at the camera and look at what the camera is doing. Okay, dog has a squeaky toy. You're gonna lose that. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the rotation on the head, which is of course where the majority of the acting is coming from. To simulate a walk, I want you to notice something that goes on here. You're going to notice the rotation of the head. Follow it with me. You're going to see the rotation, and you can look at the head, but I honestly would recommend you look right here at the chin. You get a better idea of what's going on. So you'll notice as he's walking, and this is, if you remember my walking tutorial, this is the push-off where he's at his highest point. And you'll notice the chin comes back, and it kind of drags along, and when he steps, you get that head coming down. And you can see that on the top of the head as well. So this is him taking a step. And there's another step. And you can also look at the collar and see the same thing, because it looks like his head's doing a little bit of acting. So you see the collar go forward, collar goes back, collar goes forward, collar goes back, and then he stops. And he comes to this slow stop. So that is pretty much, and then you get the chest rotation, which is why we're looking at the collar as chest rotations. That's pretty much the only animation we're seeing to give us the idea that he's walking, and that pretty much sells it. So, just this simple up and down motion on the pelvis, and then that rotation on the chest, and then the drag on the head. That you'll notice that the head kind of, the collar goes forward first, and then the head, and that gives you a feeling of looseness in the neck here, where they're not rotating at the exact same time. Like normally if you were to rotate the chest, the head would automatically go with it. So what you do is you counter animate. So like right around here, if we were to look at the head in the graph editor, let's see, which rotation is that? That's X. We'll notice it goes back. It goes forward here. Whereas if we look at the chest, we'll notice that the rotation starts a lot earlier. So this is where the chest starts rotating forward. We get that flat tangent, and then it starts going this way. Forward and then back. So it starts right here. And the head, you'll notice the rotation doesn't really start until you actually get this counter animation, and then you'll see it finally starts to come back up. And it looks like someone put a keyframe right there. So 2 frames ahead. And then you get another keyframe here. Alright, so let's talk about head straps. For some reason, people really want me to talk about head straps, so I will. This is all what we call secondary animation. This is not something you would do until you were 100% happy with your shot. You see this little strap here. And normally they're really not moving that much at all when he's in the first part of the shot. He kind of just leaves it alone, leaves it tucked under the collar. But right here we get this big swing. before I do that, let me point out something a lot more important. This arm swing here, I want you to notice you've got this upward rotation on the shoulder. And he brings elbow up first to lead the motion, and then he swings the elbow forward. So he's starting this rotation. He brings the shoulder down, elbow first, and then right around here he brings the fist forward. So he rotates the arm in this direction. And you could do this with IK, but it's actually a lot easier with inverse kinematics, which looks like what this entire shot was filmed in. A forward kinematics, I apologize. So for those of you that want to do an acting shot with realistic arm movements, that's just a hot tip there, that forward kinematics is way easier to deal with than inverse kinematics when it comes to arms. You really only want to use your IK on the arms when you're grabbing an item. You want something to stay locked on the hands. If you're like they're pulling up on an object, if they're pretty much anywhere where the hand is touching something, IK makes a lot more sense. But for realistic movement like that, bam, it's so much easier to get from point A to point B just rotating the arms yourself, the actual, because let's be honest, I mean we feel like our hands kind of move on their own, but if you really stop and think about it, when you move your hand around, it's because the joint above it. So if you're moving your hand, it's because you're rotating your wrist. And if you're moving your wrist, it's because you're rotating your upper arm here, the humerus. So just something to think about. Okay, fine. Head straps. Yes. So let's take a look at strap number 1. You can see it's moving all over the place. But again, most of this is in the head. You can see the strap is just kind of tracking with the head here. And then you get this arc where it swings forward and then back, and then it's just kind of hanging there nice and flat like it's supposed to. Here, you see this a little bit here. This is just a little bit of counter animating. You get this anticipation. A head strap would, he's rotating his neck, so they put in a little bit there. That's all just for looks. It actually, in my opinion, is not very natural looking, but it doesn't matter because it's more important that it's not moving so that it doesn't distract from the rest of the scene. Because, of course, as a general rule in animation, anything that's moving on the scene, people are going to look at, and they don't want you looking at the head straps. I mean, I could take the head straps right here and have them swing all the heck over the place. Whee! Let me have it do it again just for fun. Head straps. We love head straps. Whee! Look at the head straps, and obviously it's ruining our scene just because it's looks like there's like a tapeworm attached to his ear or something. Let's undo that. Okay. But then we have a something happening here that is very interesting called lead and follow, because this is a leather strap, so it's very flimsy, and we get this forward motion from the neck. The neck goes, or the head, I should say, goes up. We get this upward motion, throws the head strap up, and of course, because this is close and attached to the helmet, it's actually not going to move very much. It's going to go immediately right back into place. You'll notice these little dangly bits, they kind of drag behind. They actually, even when they come forward, they kind of stay back. Looking at this part here, you'll notice that it actually animates back in this direction first, then goes forward, and it stays back there until right about here. It's still actually coming back at this point, even though this guy's pretty much done. That's what we call lead and follow. Kind of like a fox tail, where it kind of whips back and forth. Okay, let's move on. I'm tired of talking about straps. Let's talk about... See, there we go. There's an example of IK right there. You can switch to an IK rig for the hand, so that even though his shoulders are moving around, his hand stays in place. So there's a great reason that you want to do that. Don't need head straps anymore. we're really not going to... I guess we could just take a quick moment to talk about lip sync. There's a few interesting things that happens here. The nose is actually changing shape constantly, and that's not something that you'd normally see with an amateur animator. This is something that is, active. They're going through pose to pose. Every spike you see is a keyframe. So here, keyframe, here, keyframe, 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 keyframe. So this is meticulously animated, and it's not for the faint of heart. So while something may seem straightforward, there's a lot going on here. And again, this is literally just the nose changing size to go with the mouth. And of course, this is not something you're going to get from emoticons or these emotion tabs and from the phonemes. I mean, they do a great job of filling the gap, but I can guarantee you that they spent a majority of their time in this shot on the facial animation. So that's something to take away from this, is just how much animation there is here. Let's go ahead and move on, I think, to the next shot. I think we've explored most of what there is to talk about here. Of course, I could talk forever about this, but I don't want to. Let's take a look at the second shot. Shot B, Noah's Ark scene. Now, here's another example of IK arms. Actually, no. I don't think these are IK arms. Oh, yeah, they are. And the reason I say that is that this little thing right here is total giveaway, doing little circles with the hands. That's a lot easier to do. And you can see, you can almost feel the puppetry where the wrists are driving the animation and the arms are kind of following, versus, something like this arm, where is it? That arm shot I was telling you about. You must fight, where you really feel like the shoulder and the arm are pushing that motion. And honestly, it's just a different way of, what is it, skinning a donkey? I don't know. I can't remember what the phrase is. But ultimately, you get the same thing. And you can use one or the other. It is personal preference. But in certain cases, it's just going to be a lot easier. And something like that right here. Herding him onto a boat. That's going to be a lot easier with IK. Especially since he's holding those grenades and he wants to be able to rotate them in a very specific way. Oh, also, did you notice this pinky here? Fancy little pinky animation right there. Just little things that they decided. Maybe someone thought that was really funny. Like it wasn't there originally, then they threw it on there just because it was. Okay. Once again, no lower body. Actually, wait. This is probably because in this shot, you do get an opportunity to see the upper legs. I mean, the camera's barely hitting the upper legs at this point. But for some reason, we are seeing IK legs, and more evidence that perhaps this entire scene was just animated very quickly in an IK rig, just on its own. So there's always that. What else is there to see? Animation. Obviously, they did not animate the upper face at all. They didn't need to. There's some interesting head animation or helmet animation happening here. Back into the shot. For some reason, the straps are gone, and this may just be a source filmmaker thing, but I think they just took the straps out because there was so much helmet motion that they wanted to put in here, and the straps were, maybe it was just a time thing. They said, oh, no one will notice those straps are missing. So I don't remember whether or not those are actually there in the real video, but they're not here. There are no straps. So you strap lovers that keep talking about straps, suck it. All right. So this is every motion you see in here. This is not necessarily reflective of counter animation, but I think in this situation, if I was to make a key here and a key here, it should wipe out all that animation. We'll see what happens. Yeah, that is all counter animation. So you'll notice on its own, this is what it would look like if there was no counter animation on the helmet. And I mean, it still works fine, but you can see how much, when I go back, how much effort was put into really making this guy look crazy. They just decided, let's loosen up that helmet and make him look like this guy is just, you know, bonkers, and he doesn't know what he's doing. So the helmet is flying all over the place. And I did an animation tutorial that shows you how to, you know, what to do with the helmet. That was a really brief animation tutorial, but yeah, this is essentially that. I mean, you could see that helmet is doing all sorts of wiggles and waggles. Basically, any major motion of the head, they decided make that thing just rock back and forth. So here's another big animation, rock back and forth. Settles down, he moves. That wasn't even that big of a motion, but whatever. We're just going to make that thing fly all over the place. Wiggle, waggle, wiggle, waggle, wiggle. Da, 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 just back and forth. This way, that way, this way, that way. So this one actually makes sense that the helmet's doing that. It's probably the only place that it really needs to move. If it's, and maybe because there's no helmet straps, that's why the helmet's going everywhere. So other thing to take away from this scene is, of course, you can take those grenades off. From an acting standpoint, I want to point out how little motion is here. You're going to see his hands are just staying there, and they move to this position. So this is pose to pose as we know it. There's the motion on the hands. So we've got just a little bit of a ambient motion here, and then quick motion here. Here's the next pose. You see it levels out. Not a lot of, just a little bit of a settle motion here. And then again, they move, and then they stay there. And this is basically what happens, is you've got a pose that you like this. You've got these poses that you want the hands to stay into, and they move realistically. Oops, now I'm just ruining it. So this is probably the course of action that they took. It's like, okay, I like this pose, I like this pose, I like that pose. And you'll notice the grenades are moving around now because those transitions. You can see that they counter-animated the hands to not follow a natural pose-to-pose motion to give it some more oomph. And that's what we call an in-between. So you've got this little in-between where they come down, and then you'll notice, like, for example, this hand comes off to the right and then goes to the left, like that. And then this hand kind of does a little bit of a rotation before it comes down. So it goes up and down, and this hand goes right and left, instead of just going straight from here to here. So yeah, pose to pose in action. So anytime you see a flat area, that's a hold, which is necessary, because if they were just swinging all over the place the whole time, you're just going to be looking at the hands the whole time, and you don't want to. You actually notice, if you watch this video, you're pretty much just looking at his face. And you'll notice that the hands are framed around the head, and they're always pointing kind of towards the head to give you that visual sense. Look at my face. Look at my face. And now you're looking at the grenades. And we're looking at, yeah, we just go from looking at the face to looking at the grenades. So looking at the face, you see these lines pointing to the face, and then now we're looking over here, back to the face for a little bit, and then just general slamming of the grenades. So that's my takeaway from that scene. How much time are we at here? I don't even know. Alright, finally, let's take a look at shot D, shot C apparently missing. This one's pretty straightforward. Just reviewing all the stuff we talked about. You've got some IK happening on the chin, where he's just rotating the chin back and forth and the hand is following. A little bit of a counter animation on the grenades and on the collar here, just to emphasize that quick, really, like, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That hand moves really fast. Whoop. It's down there. Kind of like a 10 hut, and from that day forward. More helmet waggle. Look at that helmet waggle. Waggle, 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 waggle. For this is very much a Looney Tunes sort of thing here, where this is totally unnatural motion. He comes down, and his pelvis somehow moves 5 feet forward. Whoop. Yoink. If we can take a look at that if we'd like. Oh no. He's standing right in front of me. Look at that. That is a big step forward. Not a very realistic one, but that doesn't matter because in the shot, because normally he'd probably be like, you know, coming up on top of his foot, then coming down, then coming up, but they wanted to get this effect where he kind of pops into the shot, so they just took him down and whoop, he leads with his helmet is pulling him forward into the camera, and then you get this little shuttle, the shoulders come up, and then the helmet waggles, of course, but yeah, look at the shoulders. He stops immediately, the shoulders come up, then the collars pop out. Of course, we're just looking at the mouth here. There's not a lot going on. He comes down like he's getting at eye level with this supposed soldier. And you'll notice he does this little animation with the chin where his chin rotates into his neck so that then you can get this dig forward with the chin again. Again, you'll notice the pelvis comes down, comes back up, and we get this shoulder thing happening. Shoulders come up, shoulders come down, head waggle. They really do a good job of making you feel like he takes a step here. You see that the chest comes up and then comes down. I mean, this is so fast, you barely notice this, but it really does all come together and produces an effect that feels good. Yeah, really big chest rotation there. He comes up, zoo. It's like he comes back and forward so quickly, it's almost cartoonish. I mean, there's no way you could do it that fast in real life without hurting yourself. Helmet waggle. I mean, I think we could just call this entire animation, instead of Meet the Soldier, it should be Meet the Helmet. But yeah, so that is pretty much all I have to say about this animation. I really just wanted to explore exactly what's going on in the shot, give you an idea of how much effort really goes into these things and how much skill it takes. And of course, we've got these interesting shots. But in my opinion, compared to the other Meet the Team videos, this is all kind of just filler. It is humorous to a degree, but it's really just action shots. They probably could have just done it like Meet the Scout and just had all of these shots in a row together. Maybe we could just, delete all of these and just have these shots in a row. But because that's really what's driving this entire scene. So kudos to whoever animated these shots. It may have been one different person for each shot, and there's evidence that that's probably the case. Usually you'll get one animator to work on a 5 to 10 second scene. So yeah, these 3 different scenes were probably done by 3 completely different people. But who knows? Maybe at this time Valve only had one animator, and they just said make all the Meet the Team videos. But I feel like each of these shots has their own personality and style, so I am more inclined to believe the former. So yeah, that's Meet the Soldier. Hope you enjoyed this video.